Hello students, in this video we are going to study the chapter Indigo from our book Flamingo. The story is based on the interview taken by Louis Fisher of Mahatma Gandhi. In order to write on him, he had visited him in 1942 at his ashram Sevagram, where he was told about the Indigo movement started by Gandhiji. The story revolves around the struggle of Gandhi and other prominent leaders in order to safeguard sharecroppers from the atrocities of landlords. He says that in the month of December in the year 1916, Mahatma Gandhi went to attend the annual meeting of the Indian National Congress at Lucknow. There was about 2,301 representatives and visitors. Gandhi recalled that a small farmer named Rajkumar Shukla came to him who was poor and thin. He requested Gandhi to visit Champaran, a place in the foothills of the Himalayan mountain range near the Kingdom of Nepal. He told Gandhi that he was a sharecropper. A sharecropper is a farmer who gives a part of the crop as rent to the owner of that piece of land that he cultivates. He told him that because of an old agreement, many of the peasants in Champaran were sharecroppers. He had come to meet Gandhi on someone's suggestion as he was determined to find a solution for the sharecroppers who were facing hardships due to this agreement. He sought Gandhiji's help. After hearing his problem, Gandhiji told him that he had to visit Kanpur and some other parts of India due to prior appointments. Shukla went with him everywhere. After this, Gandhi returned to his ashram near Ahmedabad. Shukla was also there with him for several weeks, begging him to fix a date to visit Champaran. As Gandhi was impressed with the determination of the peasant, he said that he would be visiting Kolkata after a few months and that Shukla should meet him there. On the day that had been fixed, Shukla was eagerly waiting for Gandhiji. When Gandhi got free, they both took a train to Patna. Then they went to the house of a lawyer, Rajendra Prasad, who later became the President of India. When they reached there, he was not at home, but the servants allowed both of them to stay at the grounds because they knew Shukla. They all knew him because Shukla used to assist their master in helping indigo sharecroppers. They did not allow Gandhi to draw water from their well as they took him to be untouchable and did not want to pollute the entire water source. As Shukla was not able to provide Gandhi with adequate information, therefore he decided to go to Muzaffarpur, which was on the way to Champaran, to obtain the complete information. He sent a telegram to Professor J.B. Kriplani, who was a teacher at Arts College in Muzaffarpur. Gandhi had seen him at Tagore's Santiniketan school. Gandhi took a train to Muzaffarpur that arrived at midnight on 15th April 1917. Kriplani was already waiting there with his students. Gandhi stayed there for 2 days at Professor Malkani's home, who was a teacher in a government school. According to Gandhi, it was a remarkable thing that a government professor was entertaining him because in those days people in small localities were afraid of supporting those who supported home rule. The news of Gandhi's arrival and the purpose of his mission spread through Muzaffarpur and Champaran very fast. Sharecroppers started to visit him. Muzaffarpur lawyers informed Gandhi about the whole situation as they represented various peasants in the court. They explained to him about their cases and the fee that they charged them. Gandhi scolded the lawyers for charging such high fee from the poor sharecroppers. He decided that it was useless to go to the courts as the judiciary was not doing anything good for the peasants. He said that as long as the peasants were suppressed and full of fear, it was useless to visit the courts. He wanted to set them free from fear. Most of the cultivable land in the Champaran district was owned by Englishmen who had divided them into various estates. The peasants were the occupants of these lands. Englishmen forced the peasants to cultivate indigo on 15% of their land and to give the crop to them as rent. All this was done through a long term agreement. Presently, the landlord learned that Germany had developed synthetic indigo. They thereupon obtained agreements from the sharecroppers to pay them compensation for being released from the 15% arrangement. नाउ गांधी जी को पता चलता है कि वो जो शेयर क्रॉपिंग है वो क्या है कि जो ज़मीन है वो इंग्लिश मैन का है और ये पीजेंट्स उसमें खेती करते हैं एंड दे हैव टू कल्टिवेट जो 15% उनके लैंड का टोटल 15% है वो उसमें सिर्फ इंडिगो उगाएंगे और वो एज अ टोटल पूरा का पूरा इंग्लिश अंग्रेजों को एज अ रेंट दे देंगे. नाउ अब क्या हुआ है कि जर्मनी ने सिंथेटिक इंडिगो डिस्कवर कर दिया है, सो दे आर नॉट रिक्वायर्ड. जो इंडिगो है क्रॉप वो अब ज़रूरत नहीं है. सो ब्रिटिशर्स ने क्या किया कि उन्होंने कहा कि आप कंपनसेशन दे दो तो आपको ये 15% की जो इंडिगो की खेती है वो नहीं करनी पड़ेगी. While all this was going on, the landlords came to know about the chemical indigo being prepared in Germany. It was a blue colored dye made with chemicals. They started demanding money from the poor peasants in order to cancel their agreement as they no longer required the indigo plantation. The sharecropping system was very annoying, so many of the peasants paid for the cancellation of the agreement, but as the news about synthetic indigo spread and reached the uneducated peasants, they started demanding their money back. Now जब ये शेयर क्रॉपर्स को पता चला कि एक्चुअल रीज़न क्या है, वो उनको शेयर क्रॉपिंग से इंडिगो की क्रॉपिंग से फ्री करने के पीछे का रीज़न क्या है कि जर्मनी ने सिंथेटिक इंडिगो का आविष्कार कर दिया है. सो अब वो अपने पैसे जो उन्होंने एग्रीमेंट से फ्री होने के लिए पे किए थे वो अपना वापस डिमांड करने लगते हैं कि हमें पैसे वापस मिलने चाहिए. When Gandhi arrived at Champaran, he decided to gather the facts. For this, he visited the secretary of the British Landlords Association. The secretary did not answer him because he could not give any information to an outsider. After this, he went to the commissioner of the Tirhut division. Champaran district was under Tirhut division. The commissioner not only threatened Gandhi but also suggested him to leave Tirhut immediately. Though Gandhi was threatened by the commissioner, he did not leave the place. He then went to Motihari, which was the capital of Champaran. He was joined by several lawyers. When they reached the station, they were welcomed by a large number of people. He then went to a house which was later converted into his headquarters. He started his inquiry into the matter. Gandhi decided to visit a nearby village when he came to know about an incident of ill treatment with a peasant. He was on his way on an elephant when the superintendent's messenger stopped him and ordered him to return back to the town. Gandhi followed him and the messenger took him back to his home. He was then served a notice which ordered him to quit his movement and return back. Gandhi received the notice and signed a receipt on which he wrote that he would not obey the order. नाउ वो बाद में गांधी जी चंपारण जाते हैं जो मोतिहारी का कैपिटल है। वहाँ उनको काफ़ी सारे लॉयर्स उनके साथ जुड़ जाते हैं और वो एक घर में रहते हैं जहाँ उसको बाद में वो अपना हेडक्वार्टर बना लेते हैं, वहीं से अपना वो सारा काम करते हैं। ना एक इंसिडेंट होता है कि गांव में किसी पीजेंट के साथ बुरा होता है, सो वो उसे देखने के लिए वो एक हाथी पे बैठ के जा रहे होते हैं। तभी सुपरिटेंडेंट के मैसेंजर आते हैं और उनको वापस शहर जाने के लिए बोलते हैं। वापस उनको शहर भेजा जाता है और वहाँ पे उनको एक नोटिस सर्व की जाती है जिसमें लिखा है कि आप ये मोमेंट रोक दें और यहाँ से चले जाएं, बट गांधी जी उसे मानने से इनकार कर देते हैं। As a result, Gandhi got summons to appear in court next day. Gandhi wasn't able to sleep the whole night. He telegraphed Rajendra Prasad and asked him to come to Bihar and get some powerful people along. He sent some guidelines to the ashram and also telegraphed the whole matter to the viceroy. Next morning, Motihari was full of peasants as they wanted to support Gandhi. None of them knew about his works in South Africa. They only knew that there was a Mahatma who wanted to help them and was in trouble due to the officials. They started gathering in front of the courthouse. This incident was their attempt of setting themselves free from the fear of the British. नाउ गांधी जी ने जब उस ऑर्डर को मानने से इनकार कर दिया तो उनको समन आ गया कि कोर्ट में अपीयर होना है आपको। सो गांधी जी राजेंद्र प्रसाद को एक लेटर लिखते हैं कि वो और कुछ और पावरफुल जो लोग नोन पीपुल है उनके साथ वो वहाँ आए। नेक्स्ट मॉर्निंग वो जब गांधी जी कोर्ट जा रहे होते हैं तो वहाँ पे बहुत सारे पीजेंट्स वहाँ पे इकट्ठा हो चुके हैं और वो गांधी जी के बारे में ज़्यादा कुछ नहीं जानते, बस ये जानते हैं कि एक महात्मा उनकी मदद करने के लिए आए हुए हैं और वो उन कुछ ऑफिशियल्स के साथ उनकी प्रॉब्लम हो गई है। सो अ लार्ज नंबर ऑफ पीजेंट्स गैदर्ड इन द कोर्ट हाउस और ये पहला अटेम्प्ट था जब पीजेंट्स इकट्ठा होना शुरू किए। सो दिस वाज द फर्स्ट अटेम्प्ट। वो अपने आप को ब्रिटिशर्स के फियर से अपने आप को फ्री कर रहे थे। अब वो डर उनसे धीरे धीरे खत्म हो रहा था। As the crowd had gathered in front of the court building, it became difficult for the officers to control the mob. They had to take Gandhiji's help to regulate the crowd. Gandhi politely told the officials that if they would misuse their power, then there were chances that they would have to face a revolt from the Indians. As the situation was getting tougher, the lawyers requested the court to postpone the trial by some days. The authorities decided to first consult the higher authorities. Gandhiji objected against the delay in the proceeding of the case. He read a statement in front of the court in which he accepted his fault in a very humble manner. He said that he was not a lawbreaker and did not want to go against the law, but his duty towards humanity has a greater influence on him and it forced him to do so. He refused to leave the town because he wanted to help the sharecroppers as it was his moral duty. The magistrate asked him to arrange for the bail because he was going to give his judgment after the 2 hours long break. Gandhiji refused to seek bail and later on he was released without it. Now गांधी जी ने जो डिले की बात चल रही थी कि किसी और दिन वो कोर्ट होगा और वो फैसला दिया जाएगा, सो उन्होंने कहा कि डिले वो उनको पसंद नहीं है और उन्होंने एक स्टेटमेंट रीड किया कोर्ट के सामने जिसमें उन्होंने एक्सेप्ट किया कि उन्होंने ये काम किया है कि वो शेयर क्रॉपर्स की हेल्प कर रहे हैं और उनका लॉ तोड़ने का कोई भी इंटेंशन नहीं है, बट वो ह्यूमैनिटी के प्रति उनकी जो ड्यूटी है वो सिर्फ उसको पूरा कर रहे हैं। सो मजिस्ट्रेट उनको बेल लेने के लिए बोलता है कि 2 घंटे बाद जजमेंट होगा, आप बेल ले लो तब तक। तो गांधी जी बेल लेने से मना कर देते हैं और बाद में उनको विदाउट बेल ही रिलीज कर दिया जाता है। When the court proceedings restarted, the judge refuses to deliver any judgment for many days to come. He allowed Gandhiji to remain free. Some well-known lawyers like Rajendra Prasad, Brij Kishore Babu, and Maulana Mazharul Haq came from Bihar to help and advise Gandhiji. Gandhi asked that if he was sentenced to jail, then what would be their course of action? One senior lawyer replied that they were there to help him out, and if he was sentenced to jail, then they would return back. When Gandhi came to know about their decision, he asked them to help the sharecroppers who were facing unfairness. Rajendra Prasad and other lawyers concluded that if Gandhi could go to jail for the people of their area, although he was a stranger, then they should also follow him, as they had always claimed to serve the peasants and fought their legal battles too. Now जब गांधी जी को पता चला कि ये लोग जैसे ही वो जेल चले जाएंगे, ये लोग वापस अपने अपने घर चले जाएंगे, nobody will be there to help the sharecroppers. सो वो कहते हैं कि वो जो इन शेयर क्रॉपर्स के साथ अनजस्टिस हो रहा है वो उसका क्या होगा। सो राजेंद्र प्रसाद और बाकी लॉयर्स ये डिसाइड करते हैं, अपने में मीटिंग होती है कि जब ये आउटसाइडर जो यहाँ के हैं भी नहीं, महात्मा गांधी, ये लोग यहाँ के लोगों के लिए जेल जाने को तैयार हैं। सो ये लोग जो राजेंद्र प्रसाद और बाकी लोग हैं ये तो यहीं के हैं और वो ये बहुत सालों से इनके लिए ये लीगल बैटल, कोर्ट के बैटल्स जो हैं शेयर क्रॉपर्स के लिए लड़ते आए हैं। सो वो भी मतलब गांधी जी जब उनके लिए इतना कर सकते हैं तो व्हाई नॉट दिस पीपल आर गोइंग टू डू समथिंग। दे डिसाइडेड दैट इफ गांधी वेंट टू जेल देन दे वुड फॉलो टू। ऑन हियरिंग दिस गांधी जी assured them that their struggle for Champaran peasants had been won. सो जो राजेंद्र प्रसाद और बाकी लॉयर्स कहते हैं कि जब वो गांधी जी को जेल होगा तो वो लोग भी उनके साथ जेल जाएंगे। सो इस बात को सुन के गांधी जी कहते हैं कि जो चंपारण का बैटल है वो जीत चुके हैं। ही एडवाइज्ड द ग्रुप इनटू पेयर्स ऑफ 2 एंड मेड अ सीक्वेंस इन विच दे हैड टू वॉलंटरीली सरेंडर इन द कोर्ट। सो उन्होंने जितने भी लोग हैं उनको ग्रुप्स में डिवाइड कर दिया और वो सीक्वेंस बना दिया कि कैसे आपको एक एक करके कोर्ट में सरेंडर करना है, सभी को एक साथ नहीं, ग्रुप वाइज आपको वहां पे सरेंडर करना है। After some days, the magistrate sent a letter to Gandhiji in which it was written that as per the orders of deputy governor, the case against him had been taken back. It was for the first time in modern India that a peaceful protest against the government had been won. सो कुछ दिन बाद मजिस्ट्रेट का लेटर आता है कि वो जो उनके ऊपर केस था विद ऑर्डर ऑफ डिप्टी गवर्नर वो विड्रॉ कर लिया गया है। और ये पहली बार होता है कि जब कोई पीसफुल प्रोटेस्ट अगेंस्ट द गवर्नमेंट वो उसकी जीत हुई हो। गांधी एंड अदर लॉयर्स कैरिड ऑन विद एन इन डेप्थ इन्वेस्टिगेशन इनटू द इनजस्टिस विद द फार्मर। Statements of about 10,000 peasants were recorded and various documentary proofs were collected. The whole area vibrated with activity, the investigators and the protesting landlords. So कोर्ट से फ्री होने के बाद गांधी जी और बाकी लॉयर्स इसमें काफ़ी ज़्यादा डीपली इन्वेस्टिगेट करते हैं और पूरी एरिया इनकी एक्टिविटी से मतलब ये बहुत ज़्यादा वहाँ पे मूवमेंट करते हैं और इनके मूवमेंट के अगेंस्ट में जो लैंडलॉर्ड्स हैं वो काफ़ी प्रोटेस्ट भी करते हैं। In June, Gandhi was called up to be present before Deputy Governor Sir Edward Gate. Before meeting him, he met his chief supporters and made plans for civil disobedience. In case he did not return, Gandhi had 4 long interviews with the Deputy Commissioner, which led to the formation of a commission that inquired into the indigo sharecropper situation. The commission had landlords, government officials, and Gandhi, who was the only spokesperson for the पीजेंट्स। नाउ गांधी जी के लिए अगेन एक लेटर आता है। जो डिप्टी गवर्नर्स और एडवर्ड गेट हैं वो वहाँ जाने से पहले वो अपने सपोर्टर्स से मिलते हैं और कमिश्नर से मिलते हैं, डिप्टी कमिश्नर से, और एक कमेटी बनाते हैं जो कि इन्वेस्टिगेट करेगी इन सारे मैटर्स को। Gandhi remained in Champaran for 7 months. He also made several short visits later. His visit on the request of a peasant was presumed to last a few days, but it took a year. The official inquiry did not favor the planters, hence they agreed to pay back to the peasants. But the question Gandhiji regained the amount to be repaid. Now गांधी जी वहाँ पे 7 मंथ्स तक चंपारण में स्टे करते हैं। एक पीजेंट्स के बुलाने पे वो वहाँ आए थे, उनको लगा कि मैटर 2-4 दिन में ख़त्म हो जाएगा, बट इट टुक ऑलमोस्ट अ ईयर। जो इन्वेस्टिगेशन कमेटी द्वारा की गई उसमें वो जो ब्रिटिशर्स थे वो गिल्टी पाए गए और अब था कि वो उन्हें वापस वो जो अमाउंट उन्होंने लिया था वो वापस करना पड़ेगा। सो द क्वेश्चन गांधी जी की कितना पैसा उन्हें वापस करना होगा। The moneylenders had thought that Gandhi would ask for the full payment of the money which they had taken from the peasants forcefully and fraudulently, but he asked for only 50% and his decision was firm. A missionary, Reverend J.Z. Hawes, who had a close watch on the matter, reported this. The planters offered to pay only 25% as they thought it would be rejected by Gandhiji. He immediately accepted it. Now जो था प्लांटर्स को ऐसा लगा कि गांधी जी पूरे पैसे वापस करने को बोलेंगे, बट जेजो हॉज के कहने पे वो 25% पे भी एग्री हो जाते हैं। गांधी said that the amount of money was not important, but by giving money the planters had bowed down to the peasants and had given away their honor too. The planters who earlier behaved as if they were above the law now had to abide by it. Now गांधी जी कहते हैं कि जो अमाउंट ऑफ मनी है वो बहुत ज़्यादा इम्पोर्टेंट नहीं है। पहले जो पहली चीज़ है वो कि प्लांटर्स, द ब्रिटिशर्स जो हैं वो पहली बार पीजेंट्स के आगे झुके हैं और उनको अपने ऑनर में भी उनके कमी आई है। सो पहले उनको लगता था कि वो कानून से ऊपर हैं, बट अब भी वो सब भी कानून के दायरे में हैं। दिस मेड द पीजेंट्स रियलाइज देयर राइट्स एंड गिव देयर करेज टू फाइट फॉर देम। सो अब जो पीजेंट्स हैं उनको अपने राइट्स का, अधिकार का पता चल गया है और उनको हिम्मत भी मिल गई है उसके अगेंस्ट में लड़ने के लिए। Events had proven Gandhi's position. The British planters had to leave their property within the next few years. These properties were returned back to the peasants. Indigo sharecropping soon came to an end. Gandhi was satisfied by achieving political or economic solution. He sought to remove the cultural and social backwardness of Champaran. सो गांधी जी की एफर्ट से ब्रिटिशर्स वहाँ से कुछ सालों में चले जाते हैं एंड द प्रॉपर्टी वाज रिटर्न बैक टू द शेयर क्रॉपर्स। सो यहाँ उनकी पॉलिटिकल एंड इकोनॉमिक विन होती है, बट वो जो सोशल एंड कल्चरल बैकवर्डनेस चंपारण में है वो उसको भी इम्प्रूव करना चाहते हैं। गांधी wanted to do something to remove the backwardness in the village of Champaran. He requested teachers such as Mahadev Desai and Narhari Parikh and their wives to teach the villagers. Both of them were the followers of Gandhi. Many other volunteers came from Bombay and Pune to join them. Mrs. Gandhi and their youngest son Devdas arrived from the ashram for their help. Primary schools were opened in 6 villages where Kasturba Bai used to teach the ashram rules on cleanliness and community sanitation. The health condition of the people of Champaran were very poor, so Gandhi got a doctor who offered his services free of cost for 6 months. There were only three medicines: castor oil, quinine, and sulfur ointment available. A patient with a coated tongue was given castor oil, a malaria patient was served a dose of quinine, and a patient with a skin disorder was given ointment and castor oil. The women of the area used to wear dirty clothes. When Gandhiji tried to know the reason through his wife, he was told that those were the only saris each of the women had. While Gandhiji was in Champaran, he kept a long distance vigil on the ashram. He used to send letters of orders regarding financial matters. Once he wrote to the local that it was time to dig new latrines as the old ones had started giving foul smell. The Champaran incident changed Gandhiji's life. He said that he had done a regular thing. He had put his point across that the Britishers could not order him in his own country. The Champaran Satyagraha was not an act of opposition, it was an attempt to help out the poor and tortured peasants. This was Gandhiji's way to solve issues. His politics was knitted up with the everyday problems faced by the millions of people. He did not aim at the fulfillment of ideas, rather, he was concerned for the people. The basic idea was to serve humanity and make a free Indians who could stand for his rights. Charles Ferrer Andrews, who was a peacemaker, visited Gandhi before going on a tour of duty to the Fiji Islands. Gandhi's lawyer's friends wanted Andrews to stay at the ashram and help them, but Gandhiji refused. Now चार्ल्स फेरर एंड्रयू उनकी जो ट्रांसफ़र कर दिया गया था फिजीज आइलैंड्स में, वहाँ जाने से पहले वो गांधी जी से मिलते हैं और उनकी इच्छा होती है कि वो गांधी जी की हेल्प करें। और जो लॉयर्स होते हैं गांधी जी के जो मित्र, वो भी ऐसा ही चाहते हैं कि वो यहीं रुकें और उनकी हेल्प करें, बट गांधी जी इसको मना कर देते हैं, रिफ्यूज़ कर देते हैं इस आइडिया को। He said that they did not need the help of Britishers as it showed a lack of trust in their own ability. He asked them not to seek any help from Mr. Andrew as he was an Englishman. सो गांधी जी इसके लिए जो रीज़न देते हैं कि एक ब्रिटिशर्स से हेल्प लेने का मतलब कि हम लोगों को अपनी एबिलिटीज़ पे ट्रस्ट नहीं है, सो वो लोग इंग्लिश मैन एंड्रयू की हेल्प नहीं लेंगे, उनसे कोई मदद नहीं मांगेंगे। Dr. Rajendra Prasad later on stated that Gandhi had read their mind thoughts, and his replies served as a lesson of self-sufficiency for them. Being self-dependent, free, and helping the peasants, all these acts of Gandhiji were interconnected. Now डॉक्टर राजेंद्र प्रसाद कहते हैं कि गांधी जी ने उनके दिमाग को, जो उनकी थॉट्स उनको रीड कर लिया था, और वो सेल्फ रिलायंस, बीइंग सेल्फ डिपेंडेंट और फ्री एंड हेल्पिंग द पीजेंट्स, ये जो आइडियाज़ थे, वो जो जिसको लेके वो चंपारण मूवमेंट हुआ, ये सब इंटरकनेक्टेड था, एक दूसरे से सब जुड़ा हुआ था। सो दैट ये लोग एक लेसन यहाँ से लर्न करते हैं कि सेल्फ डिपेंडेंस एंड सेल्फ सफिशिएंसी बहुत ज़रूरी है। सो हियर वी कम टू द एंड ऑफ दिस चैप्टर। थैंक यू।